All right, hi guys. I thought I would make a quick video today just showing off my latest computer. I'm also trying out some different methods of recording video. I've had a lot of troubles with equipment lately, which is kind of what happens when you try to do everything on kind of a zero budget. I don't have a lot of money to spend on this stuff. So anyway, this is my latest acquisition. This was saved from a dumpster, and it is an IBM PS1 486 SX25. And it's really quite a neat machine. Now, the PS1 range was early to mid-90s when IBM pretty much gave up on their PS2 range. They started making just regular, pretty much, I said this in my Aptiva video, but basically this is IBM becoming an IBM clone manufacturer. So they dropped the MCA bus, they dropped all the non-standard stuff. So this is pretty much just like any 386, 486 clone. There's nothing strange about it, really. Of course, there are always a few IBM idiosyncrasies. It can't be all normal. So it has stuff like they insist on using flathead screws for some reason. And it has its own BIOS, obviously like an IBM BIOS, which can be kind of weird, but it's usually just like this is basically just a 486 ISA clone. And if we compare it to the IBM Aptiva, we can see that these are remarkably similar machines, and in fact the Aptiva was the replacement for the PS1 range. So these were sort of the home model, the kind you would get for, you know, doing work and games and stuff at home. And you can see that the cases are very similar. They open in the same way by pulling this tab. They both have these panels that open, although this one you kind of fold down and this one you press, and it has a clicky thing. Both of them have the 3.5-inch floppy in the same place and the 5.25-inch bay in the same place. This machine is a little bit later. This is a DX266, came with 4 megs of RAM and 540 megs of hard drive. This would be 94. This I think is 93. So as you can see, this particular machine is an IBM 2133-842, and it had 4 megs of RAM and a 170 meg hard drive and a 486 SX25. That's the stock configuration. Now let's open it and see what's inside, and I think I'll open the Aptiva side by side so we can compare them. So having opened both of these machines up, this is the Aptiva and this is the PS1, you can clearly see that the Aptiva is for all intents and purposes just a rebadged or a continuation of the PS1 line. The motherboards are laid out differently, but they have very much the same feel to them. The power supplies are similar. You can see this bar going across that is nearly identical on both systems. And yeah, overall it's just very much a similar story. The PS1 system has its original hard drive. It's an IBM drive, 171 megs. It has nothing in the 5.25-inch slot. It has the regular 3.5-inch disk drive. It has 4 megs of RAM, and then someone installed an additional 8 megs, so this currently has 12. Looking at the motherboard, we can see the Intel 486 SX25 MHz CPU. We can see the PC speaker and the wiring harness that goes off to the LEDs for the hard drive indicator and the power indicator. We can see 8 empty slots for level 2 cache, so this has no cache installed actually, so maybe we'll put in some cache if I have enough spare chips. And here we can see the RAM. Here you can see the integrated graphics chip, which is a Cirrus Logic GD5424, which I believe is the same one as in the Aptiva, or maybe that was a 5430 or something like that. It's a pretty basic system. It's got 3 expansion slots, all ISA. We don't get VLB slots. Not even the Aptiva has VLB slots actually. The graphics chip is VLB internally, and I believe this also is VLB, so this probably, as far as I know, is actually local bus. Here's a quick look at the back of the systems as well, because why not? On the top the Aptiva, on the bottom the PS1, so we can see that the layout of the motherboard is identical as far as the I/O ports, VGA, printer, serial B, serial A, mouse and keyboard. It's the exact same story here. What we do see is that on the Aptiva range there was actually an option for an internal sound card, or I should say an integrated sound card. So these are line in and line out, but on the PS1 there's no room for that because there was no sound card option. And also on the Aptiva they have this plastic shroud surrounding the back to make it look a bit more tidy, and here it's just steel. On the PS1 you will be able to make out that this corner is slightly damaged. That's the kind of stuff that happens when people throw computers in dumpsters. I kind of bent it back, but so it looks all right now, but the paint is peeled off, but that's all right. Except for that, the system is in quite good condition actually. So let's just connect a monitor and fire it up and see what happens. I mean, I know what happens, but all right, we have the PS1 hooked up to a monitor and to a keyboard and a mouse. And the mouse, by the way, I believe this is the original mouse. This didn't come with the computer. This is something I've had laying around. And these mice, they came with either lighter gray buttons that were the same color as the rest of the case, or these darker gray buttons. I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that the PS1 originally came with these, with the dark buttons, and then the Aptiva and some other systems came with the lighter buttons, but I'm not sure actually. So anyway, let's fire this thing up and see what happens. So we do get the memory test, and this is kind of dark actually. So it boots right up, and it boots into MS-DOS. MS-DOS, not PC-DOS, which is kind of what I would have expected for a system like this. And I don't think they actually reinstalled anything, because the system looks very stock when you boot it. And by the way, I haven't even replaced the CMOS battery. It just works. It just remembers all the settings, and this hasn't been used. Judging by the dates on the hard drive, this hasn't been used in a very long time. And it boots right into Microsoft Windows 3.1. And everything is in Swedish, of course, because, you know, I'm gonna need to adjust those settings on the monitor. Yeah, so it boots up into, it has this nice IBM PS1 background. Let's adjust that again actually, because it's kind of flickering. Yeah, it's basically stock MS-DOS and Windows, except it comes with a number of PS1 things. So you get this PS1 information group, and you also get the PS1 tools group, and you get the PS1 programs. And I believe this is stock as well. They actually, what they did to make this, I guess, easier to use for people who are unfamiliar with computers, they took some of the most commonly used programs and just put them in the PS1 programs group. So you get solitaire, you get the calendar, paintbrush, the calculator and the clock, as well as Microsoft Works, because this did come with Microsoft Works 2.0 pre-installed, so licensed to the owner of the PS1 computer. So this is an OEM bundled thing. Yep. And then let's just take a real quick look at all the PS1 specific things, because I'm sure you've seen you know, DOS and Windows before, but these apps are kind of unique. So you get Windows lessons, you get, you know, how to open programs and Windows, and you have to remember that even using a mouse, even using scroll bars, was pretty much an entirely new concept to people at the time. If you bought a new computer, you hadn't necessarily ever used a computer before, or you might not have used a mouse, or you might not have used a windowing environment. So yeah, so they have these this little Windows tutorial, which is kind of neat, and it basically, it's like a fake Windows thing. So you can only do the thing they're trying to teach you. In this case, they're trying to teach you the menu bar, so you can't actually, this is not a real window. And then you've got the program descriptions, so you can learn about some of the stuff that's installed. So you can learn about Microsoft Windows, or you can learn about, you know, Works, or you can learn about the various PS1 tools. You get the PS1 Index, which is basically like, this is, you have a problem you want to solve, and this will tell you how to do it. So for instance, I want to print an envelope, couvert, that's envelope. So it tells you how to do it using the software that is included, i.e. Microsoft Works. Schoolwork, printers, how to clean your computer. You know, it tells you, hey, look, that's the mouse. How to clean the mouse ball, and so forth. You get a Microsoft Works tutorial. I'm not sure if this is a Microsoft product, or yeah, this is a Microsoft product, not an IBM product, but this basically teaches you how to use Works 2.0, and this will also teach you how to use a mouse. Really basic stuff about how to operate a 1993 era computer. You also get this, which is like a basic course about not the software, but like the actual hardware of the machine. So you get to learn about how to adjust contrast and brightness, and, you know, RAM memory, and the ports on the back, and modems, and floppy disk units, and, you know, you get to learn all the basic stuff. And this, I mean, this is kind of useful. I know if this were the 90s, I would have sat around and just clicked all this stuff and just looked at the pictures and learned things. And also you get PS1 tips, which again follows the same kind of format, but this is just, I guess, stuff that didn't fit in anywhere else. This has rapid resume. This has a rapid resume, which is like kind of a sleep mode thing that IBM had at the time, so you can put the computer to sleep and then wake it up. So that's semi-useful, I guess. I had an Aptiva as my first computer. I never used it. Moving on to the PS1 tools, you get the system maintenance, which for some reason has kind of a trainer, like a shoe, as an icon. And here you get to do date and time, system information. Let's look at the system information. So as we already know, it's a 486SX, no maths coprocessor, and it's got a frequency of 25 megahertz. You've got the 1.44 meg floppy, you've got a 171 megabyte hard drive, which, by the way, is actually compressed. So this is running drive space or double space or whatever it is. So yeah, the entire disk is compressed, so it's actually, you can store up to 234 megabytes. And here we can see we've got 12 megs of RAM. I guess 4 was a little bit too little even in 93, so at some point they upgraded. It's got 512K of VRAM and internal cache memory activated, which, well, that's kind of misleading. Of course, they mean the level 1 cache, but to someone less knowledgeable, this, because cache memory was a big deal back in the day, like level 2 cache was a big deal. So you might look at this and think, hey, it's got cache. Well, kind of. You've got the mouse installed, parallel port installed, 2 serial ports, that's fine. Super VGA 800 by 600, 256 colors. DOS 6.2, Windows 3.1. It goes into sleep mode after 25 minutes, no rapid resume, and no automatic turn off. So that's nice. You get to choose your monitor. Oh, this is kind of nice, because choosing resolutions otherwise in Windows 3.1 is kind of a pain, honestly. You can create a rescue disk, which maybe I should actually. And you can back up and restore. I'm not sure what this is. Oh, I guess you get to configure different desktop settings, and then you can save and restore them. So maybe if you had different family members and you wanted different settings, I guess. Virus check. Yep. Printers. I don't have them. This just links to the control panel, and apparently the previous owner had a Canon Bubblejet BJ20. My first printer was a Canon Bubblejet. I think it was like a BJC70, which was like a small little inkjet thing that was actually intended for laptops and portable use. It was awful, like it was really, really bad. And ever since, I've had a well-deserved hatred towards inkjet printers, and I mean, I guess they've gotten better, but not a lot. Here is where you set the sleep timer, so I guess I guess I want to turn it off actually. Rapid resume, I don't need that. And then we got your software. So I guess this is a really basic utility that actually just kind of lists all the programs and then all the non-programs in each folder. So if you go into Excel, you can see that well, the only executable there is Excel. Apparently they installed Excel on this. I don't think this was included. This was something they would have bought or, you know, copied, as well as Word. But yeah, this is a really basic thing. You get File Manager, which is just File Manager. You get the MS-DOS prompt, and all the rest is just standard stuff. Oh, you also get the DOS tools, which is kind of a thing they did. But this is just antivirus, undelete, and so forth. But this machine actually kind of has another trick up its sleeve, because when you exit out of Windows, you're not taken to the DOS prompt like usual, you're actually taken into the PS1 menu. So here you go, you get Windows, you get DOS shell, you get the actual DOS prompt, and it's got double space, defragment, and memmaker. So yeah, I mean, they did what they could to make this machine kind of friendlier, to not, you know, drop people just in a DOS prompt and expect them to figure it out. But yeah, you do have DOS shell if for some reason you want to use the DOS shell instead of, you know, I always felt that this was kind of really useless, because either you use DOS or you use Windows. Why would you want this? It's like a, you know, barely it barely does anything, you know. It's so very nothing. But I always like to switch to the green color scheme because it's better that way. But yeah, I mean, that's the IBM PS1. Let me know what you think I should do with this machine. I mean, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. We can, of course, install cache memory, I think, is first on the agenda. We should install maybe a sound card, maybe a CD-ROM, maybe a faster CPU even. But I have a lot of 486 machines, and maybe this one can just, maybe it's alright to just let it keep on being the way it is. It's quite boring. Like, you can, if you look at this machine, you can tell that it wasn't used a lot. Like, these people would have used it every so often just to write a letter or do a spreadsheet, but there's no fun stuff installed. There's no, you know, there's no games. There's nothing really on the drive except Word, Excel, and the stuff that came with it, and there are a few documents, but you know, basically it looks kind of barely used. Yeah, you can see here we've got some files that actually changed in 98 and 99, and that's probably when the system was last used, and the battery holds. The battery still keeps a charge. All right, that's amazing. Anyway, that's it for this little video. See you later.